Some people say there's no such thing as ghosts. Others say some of the most convincing evidence that spirits do walk among us are through electronic voice phenomena recordings, otherwise known as EVPs. If you've never heard a ghost communicate before, you're about to. These are 6 terrifying ghost EVP recordings. Number 6. We're Not Dead. In January 2010, the American Paranormal Research Association was conducting a paranormal investigation inside the Linda Vista Community Hospital in Los Angeles, California. The hospital originally opened in 1904 and was prosperous, providing patients with things like butter, eggs, vegetables, poultry, and fresh milk, something no hospital did at the time. In 1924, a fire burned it down, but it was rebuilt and functioned well for decades. But by the 70s, this place began its decline, and soon the neighborhood around it also became less affluent, which affected its funding. This directly led to the decline in the quality of care workers there, as well as doctors. It was officially closed in 1991, and stories about the mistreatment and abuse of patients became rampant. After it was closed, the hospital became a center for paranormal investigations and was also used in various Hollywood films. Guards there reported seeing shadows and hearing weird humming sounds, and even cries in the night. Those who visit have also said they've been pushed and touched by unseen hands. In particular, there are 3 reported spirits that haunt the hospital. This includes an orderly making the rounds, a little girl seen crying, and a young woman pacing the hallways. When the paranormal researchers conducted their investigations, they were exploring the basement area when they recorded an unusual EVP. They inquired how the spirits were actually connected with the hospital, and surprisingly, they actually got a response. Here is the audio in which you can hear the voice say, "We're not dead."
How are you associated with the hospital? How are you associated with the hospital?
Number 5. I'm not done here. In 2011, paranormal investigators explored the Café Sports House in the greater Manchester area. It wasn't always a pub, but was first opened as the Roxy Cinema in July of 1929. The auditorium had a distinctive circular seating area that featured raised seats, and it was capable of accommodating more than 900 people. The Roxy closed down in 1965 and was boarded up for several years before skateboarding became popular, and it was transformed into a skate park. Eventually, it was changed into a squash club, and then into the Café Sports Pub that it is today. It has 3 floors, a massive cellar that is now a gym, a bar, and a huge bingo area that has remained fairly the same as before. For a long time, those who have explored and occupied the place have reported hearing noises coming up from inside the cellar. Shadows have also been seen in another hot spot around the corridors near the bathrooms, and a mysterious man has been spotted close to the end area of the bar. Investigators have reported unusual phenomena while inside, including seeing moving objects like punching bags swinging on their own, and even tables levitating into the air. Perhaps the most controversial and terrifying experiences was when investigators captured an EVP in 2011. It was recorded while investigators explored the pub, and in it you can hear a whispering voice telling the researchers that they are still in fact a presence in the establishment. The people standing next to the recorder at the time did not hear anything at all, and it wasn't until it was examined after that the whisper was finally heard. Here it is so you can judge for yourself. Number 4. Would you help us? Sitting on more than 1,000 acres of farmland, the Athens Lunatic Asylum, otherwise dubbed as the Ridges, has always been considered controversial and haunted. In Ohio, on January 9, 1874, the asylum first opened its doors, and throughout the years has welcomed thousands of patients. The main building alone had 544 rooms, and as time went by, many more areas were added as the building was expanded. Some of the later additions included a tuberculosis ward, gymnasium, and even a dairy barn. The building was designed so that the less severe patients were placed near the central area where they could receive interaction and socialize. Meanwhile, those who were more severe were relegated to the outer fringes of the building, far away from the exits and entrances. However, as more people started coming in, family members were dropping off, not only relatives with illnesses, but also their elderly. As overcrowding became an issue, so did the quality control, and the care soon declined. Doctors and caregivers began to resort to primitive techniques, including shock therapy, water therapy, and transorbital lobotomies. These were some of the most dangerous treatments conducted, and they resulted in many deaths. Moreover, the living conditions were also horrifying, with some patients left restrained for months or even years at a time. With such a long and troubled history, it's no surprise the Ridges is dubbed as one of the most haunted places in the United States. Those who have explored the area report seeing a ghost dubbed as Mary walking the halls late at night. Reports also come in of people standing behind them when they're looking in a mirror. The most famous story, however, is that of a female patient named Margaret, who went missing and was later found dead in an abandoned ward. She was found in the nude and determined to have died of heart failure. However, it took nearly a month before her body was ever even found. It was badly decomposed at that point, and it had melted into the floor, leaving a stain that some say is still present today. More than just a paranormal experience, investigators also managed to capture several EVPs. In this first one, you can hear a man scream, and this was recorded in a former padded room at the asylum.
Yeah, some of it. They used to have pads and stuff in there. Yeah, some of it. They used to have pads and stuff in there.
This next one is a woman saying, "Will you help us?" And you can clearly hear it. We'll play it at regular speed and then enhance so you can hear it even better. Number 3. Get Out. Perhaps Dublin's most haunted landmark, the Hellfire Club sits atop Montpelier Hill. The abandoned building has had a long, storied history, and today is a very popular tourist attraction. William Conley initially built it as a personal hunting lodge in 1725. It's said he used the stones from an ancient burial site to build part of it. After he passed away, the structure was rented out and became known as the Hellfire Club, which was a gathering place for men to partake in lewd and immoral acts. Rumors began to spread that the club was a frequent site of animal sacrifices because the group was involved in satanic rituals. They were also accused of kidnapping a farmer's daughter and even cannibalizing her. But it didn't stop there. People began to tell stories about how the group drank non-stop and even made a pact with the devil himself, and it's because of this that stories of the paranormal are so high at this location. Today, the stories about Hellfire Club and the countless hauntings that have beset the structure since it was abandoned still persist. Paranormal investigators who visit here talk of many strange occurrences, one of the most unsettling of which is the fact that actual EVP recordings have been captured by investigators while exploring the interior. The most famous was captured by the Kilkenny Investigative Paranormal Society. The group captured a voice on a recording telling the investigators to get out. It's been enhanced so you can hear it well, and it will send chills down your spine. Number 2, I'm not crazy. The Village Salon is part of a set of historic buildings that stand in the heart of Grand Cane, Louisiana. Back in the 1800s, the set of buildings once served as a barber shop and even functioned as a courthouse that managed small fines. Employees of the salon have reported several instances where they've witnessed poltergeist activity on the premises. They would constantly see moving items, electronic devices turning on and off, clothes hampers being flipped, and more. Amy, who's the owner of the salon, says she doesn't feel threatened by the spirit or hauntings, and even nicknamed the presence, calling her Brenda. A set of paranormal investigators conducted research there and said they did feel as if they were not alone. For the first few minutes after starting, they audibly heard the sound of what seemed to be a marble falling and rolling on the floor, but when they looked, they couldn't find anything or see any object. Moreover, they captured what seems to be a very clear EVP of a female saying, "I'm not crazy." EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena, are often classified in different ways depending on how audible they are. This particular one is in Class A because it's so crisp and one of the clearest EVP recordings you'll hear.
Found it over. I'm not crazy. But different people have different stages of found it over. I'm not crazy. But different people have different stages of
Number 1, get out. Help us. One of the most famous haunted ships ever known is that of the Queen Mary. It was first built in the 1930s and is larger in size when compared to the Titanic. Throughout its history, it served as a transport luxury liner and even a World War II ship before it was eventually retired. Over the years, the Queen Mary has seen countless deaths. Some of the more famous ones include that of John Henry, who was a young man that died when he was trampled to death after trying to flee a fire. It's said that various bright lights and knocking can be heard in the engine room, and that this is believed to be John. Meanwhile, in the pool area, several guests and investigators have seen the apparitions of a little girl who unfortunately died while sliding through the banister when a wave upset her course and she ended up breaking her neck. Her ghost is said to haunt the area, and she wanders around looking for her doll and mommy. In addition, 2 other women died in the same area, and guests also regularly see them. One of the most brutal deaths, though, was that of a cook who was murdered because the troops didn't like the meals he prepared. He was stuffed inside the oven and burned alive, and his desperate screams can still be heard to this day in the ship's kitchen. Today, the Queen Mary is permanently decommissioned and has been transformed into a hotel and museum with ghost tours available for those willing to brave the haunted vessel. And indeed, ghost hunters and paranormal investigators report that a multitude of apparitions and sightings have been seen throughout. In one instance, they caught an EVP when the American Paranormal Research Association searched through the first-class pool area and captured the voice of a girl saying get out and help us. As mentioned, the pool area is notoriously haunted, and guests have repeatedly seen, felt, and heard apparitions in the area. What's interesting about this one is that the investigators actually hear the voice in real time, which sounds like a young girl.
Come closer. Come closer.
So there were 6 terrifying ghost EVP recordings. Hauntings and apparitions are often a personal experience, just stories you hear about without actually seeing any evidence. But capturing EVPs are unique as they can be shared with anyone willing to listen and serve as strong proof that in the end, there is life after death. If you like this video, then remember to hit the notification bell because every Saturday night we post new videos that we know you'll enjoy. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.